Hey, you beautiful beings. Welcome to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. I am your host, and you are listening to the Throwback episodes. Yeah, I have officially taken a pause on creating new episodes for the podcast so that I can focus on writing the book. It became very clear that while I have loved doing the podcast, I'm getting these episodes out every week to you all piecemeal. I was like, no more, no more. You all were like, please, can you get us all those skills and tools, Nina, in one area so that we can do the empowered human journey, so that we can really see what it's like from start to finish, to which I say, yes, absolutely. Let me get this to you. Yes. So what you're going to be hearing is this. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes from all 6 seasons, okay? It's not going to be every episode, so don't freak out on me yet. But it is going to be some of the episodes that were highlighted, that were popular, that we think, maybe you all missed and we want to bring it back. You're going to be hearing throwback episodes, and I am going to be listening along with you. I too want to hear about the journey and experience the journey that I had as we moved from Triggered Can We Play With That, the original podcast, all the way to Empowered Human with Nina Garcia. So you're going to hear personal stories. You're going to hear interviews. You're going to be given skills in every episode. Yes, you're going to be given tools in every episode for you to become skilled in. It is totally up to you whether you want to listen. If it's not the episode for you, skip to the next week, right? You just take what works for you, leave what doesn't. And if there's some stuff you're curious about, why don't you just go ahead and put that on the shelf? The podcast has always been about putting resources in the hands of people without needing to pay for it, right? And so this is no different. Even with these throwback episodes, what you're going to hear is this. We're going through, just as I said, you're going to still hear me talk at the beginning of each episode, letting you know, hey, we've had a transition. You're going to hear the original intro to the episode. You're going to hear the show music, and then you're going to hear the full original episode. This could mean that dates are off, that times are off, that people are talked about, that may no longer be in our lives, right? Just be aware of that. At the very end of the episode, you're going to see this face again come back to remind you that it was a throwback episode and to maybe offer you some adventure challenges as you move from week to week, right? Though the format of the episode did change over the years that we've done this podcast, the value is still there. So if you like something, definitely hit me up on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina and be like, Nina, I love that throwback episode about XYZ thing. Yes, fill in the blank with that. Let me know. And if there's something that you're looking for in the meantime, also hit me up on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina and let me know. Otherwise, stay curious and enjoy the ride, folks. I'll be right along there with you. Welcome to Empowered Human, the dramatically playful podcast that invites you to heal humanity, the one within you, me, and the world at large. I'm your host, drama therapist, empowerment specialist, and not to mention empowered human, Nina Garcia, and I'm so stoked you're joining me on the journey. Every Wednesday, you are invited to explore transforming from powered to empowered with genuinely human stories of courageous existence, healing from invalidation, and truly belonging to you. So wherever you are on the spectrum, from empowerment curious to empowered human ambassador, this podcast is designed to humanize. Get ready to lean into your edge, heal your worldview, and finally belong to you. This is Empowered Human. Hey you, Nina here. This episode plays with polarized thinking for those of us who see the world in extremes as all or nothing, take it or leave it. Could be you, could be somebody you know. So I am curious. Are you ready to play? Let's take a breath. So we're here to talk about polarized thinking today, right? The idea that there is one pole on one side and one pole on the other, and that many of us get stuck in that trap of thinking that that's all that exists, this pole or that pole, all or nothing, take it or leave it.
And what we're going to talk about today is how there's actually quite a bit more between those two things. So I really want you to sit and ask yourself. If you're walking, walk safely. If you're standing, continue to stand and listen. But I want you to ask yourself, are you, or is someone you know, prone to being one of those people who gets triggered when the world doesn't easily fit into this pole or that pole? This would be phrases like, it's always this way, right? One pole, which implies that the other one might be never. You should never do it that way, which implies if you never do it that way, there must be a right way to do it. I always ruin everything, right? It's so finite. Always. Do you really always ruin everything, I would ask? You're never there for me. Never, ever, not even once, not even a little bit. And so when you hear things like always or never, those are the poles that we're talking about. It's that all or nothing, that take it or leave it. Often, this is referred to as black and white thinking. And if we were to use those poles, I would invite you and ask you to consider, can we add some gray? Right? Between the two poles, can we add some space? Can we make it more of a spectrum instead of the polarized thoughts? Wouldn't it be nice if things didn't feel so intense, so fatal, so black and white, to have a little more internal space? A little less pressure. I'm recording this episode during the holidays, in which I would think, yeah, that would be nice. But how about during any day? Being able to see with a little bit more perspective, a little bit more of that gray area, instead of just this or that. If this is you, or someone you know, you've come to the right place because we're playing with it. All right. So I got this great feedback after the last episode, and they said, man, some of these examples that you give are really specific. And I said, yeah, they are. They're really personal examples. And, they were like, what I'd really like is something just general. And I said, okay, I can do that. I think it's going to be so great when we do move into season 2 and actually have people who are going to be talking back so that we can personalize some of this. And so for today, thank you for the feedback. Let's try to stick to general examples. And here is the tool. In order to take something like the way that you see the world in poles, we have to add more than just those two options. So we're going to use a spectrum of 1 to 5, right? A continuum, if you've heard me talk about in other episodes, of 1 to 5. 1, if you're thinking numbers-wise, could be the lowest. 5 could be the highest, right? If I have 5 apples, that's 4 more than 1. 1 apple would be the lowest that I could possibly have, right? 0 not included, and obviously you could have more than 5 apples, but not in this example, not today. 1 to 5. So there's that. Beyond 1 to 5, you might see it a different way. You might say, well, if I'm in a race and I win first place, and now we're talking about placements, I'd rather have first place than 5th place. So first place is much better than 5th place. And so those are the poles. So I'm going to offer some general examples now so that you can get into the practice of thinking this way. I gave you the 1 to 5. So let's do it with the poles being hot as 1 and cold as 5. So if my continuum is cold, a cold continuum, I might say that 5 is the most cold that anything could be, and 1 is the least cold that something could be. And so if I were to set up that continuum, I might have 1 as hot, 2 as warm, 3 as room temperature, 4 as cool, and 5 as cold. And that might be my cold continuum. I might switch it around and I might say, actually, I want to do a hot continuum. And I want it to be, 5 is the most hot that it could be. And so 1 would be cold, 2 would be cool, 3 would be room temperature, 4 would be warm, and 5 would be hot. However you design your continuum is really up to you. It's a tool for you to use to have a little more perspective, add a little more gray, make things less triggering so that you can exist in the world without your emotions hijacking you, my friend. Here's another example. Dark versus light. Dark on one end, light on the other. Now, if you have a dark spectrum, you might say something like, well, 5 is the darkest it could be. 5 might be black. 4 might be dark gray. 3 is gray. 2 is light gray. And 1 might be white. Let's say you wanted a light spectrum, with 5 being the lightest it could be. 5 might be white. 4 might be light gray. 3 would be gray. 2 would be dark gray. And 1 would be black. Again, it doesn't matter which pole you set up at 1 or 5, but to be able to consider the world around you, whatever that moment is that is triggering you, and to ask yourself, what is the most I could have of what's bothering me right now, of what's triggering me right now, and what is the least that I could have of this? Whatever you notice that you're focused on, what's the 5 and what's the 1? And then what are the 2, 3, and 4? We get so stuck in the 1 and 5 so often. That's really what we're trying to practice teasing out, is how can we get a 2, 3, 4 in there? So why is this important? You may be asking me. Well, let me tell you, my friend, when we think about wellness, right? The different continuums of wellness that you can have, of which there are many. 5 of the main ones that I deal with as a therapist are physically, what's happening to you, right? Your physical wellness, your spiritual wellness, emotional wellness, social wellness, and mental wellness. And so to throw out a few examples for this, if you dislocate your leg, right, a knee, right? Maybe not your whole leg, you dislocate a knee. And you have now trouble walking. Maybe you need to do a little PT, a little physical therapy. And you may say to yourself, I'll never run again the way that I did. I was an all-star track runner and I'll never run again that way. Never? Are you for sure that you'll never run that way again? Let's set it up on a continuum, right? Can we set that up on a continuum? If the fastest, right, the most you could run, let's say you're like, Nina, I'm like a cheetah. I run 50 miles an hour. I'm not a runner, y'all. So I recognize that this is totally off base here. But let's say that that's what you come in and tell me. You say 50 miles an hour, that was the most. And like, that's a 5 for me. That was the most I can run. Now I'm running like the least right now is like 10 miles an hour. Like I'll never be able to run a 5 again. Okay. So if 10 miles is your 1 and 50 miles is your 5, can 2 be 20 miles, 3, 30, 4, 40? Can we just say, let's get you to 2? Would you be happier if you were at 2? Oh, I would definitely be happier if I was at a 2, right? I can imagine a client saying this to me, as I have heard them say in similar situations when we're talking about polls. Getting from a 1 to a 2 would likely make that person happier, less triggered by the idea that they'll never get to 5, because I don't want them to look at 1 to 5. All I want them to do is look to get to 2. How can we get you to 2? You'd feel happier if you were at 2, right? Definitely. Okay, great. Let's get you to 2. Another example. Let's look at your spiritual or emotional wellness. Okay, let's say you hazard a breakup, right? Most of us will go through this in our lifetime. We have a breakup. Whether you were the one who broke up with them or not, often what I'll hear is, I just feel like I'll never be happy again, right? Never be happy again. And I say, never? Like you'll never, ever be happy again? Not to see the sunshine or to hear a baby giggle or to eat at your favorite ice cream shop. Like you will just never be happy again? And so then we set that continuum up. The most happy you could ever be is 5. The least happy you could ever be is 1. And if 5 was, we were so happy, I was smiling, I went to work and I felt good about work and I could spend time with myself or with them. And like, that's a 5, like that's the ideal life for me. Now it's the worst it's ever been. I can't eat. I can't sleep. All I think about is them. I'm even at work. It's disrupting my work. Like, this is the worst I've ever felt. Well, okay then. That sounds like your 1. And if that was your 5, what you described before, what's your 2, 3, and 4? Well, maybe just to get to 2, it would be good if if I could just do some more things for myself. I think just to be able to focus at work, that would be the one thing I'd shift, and it would be at a 2. Okay, great. Then let's make that our focus, right? And then we start moving from 1 to 2, and things don't seem so intense. Again, it's not about jumping from your 1 to your 5, just moving 1 up the spectrum, 1 up the continuum. And then when that person's at 2, can we move to 3? Can we move to 4? Can we get you to 5 in a different way? And in a way that's really fulfilling for you. Now, for some of us, the idea of using the continuum is really helpful because 5 is actually too much for us, right? And so instead of saying, for example, something I hear fairly often, and that is, I am the most anxious I could ever be. Like, this is a 5. I never want to be this way. Like, if this is my anxiety continuum, Nina, 5, I'm here, I'm there. And I say, are you really at a 5? Right? I'm playing with it with them. And often what I'll get is yes, yes. And I say, okay, well, let me offer a little perspective here. Let's imagine that 1 is, what? Anxiety? This is the least anxious I've ever been. I don't even know what you're talking about. What does anxiety feel like? No, I feel great, right? If that's 1, let me now put 5. The most anxious someone could be is, I need to call 911 right now because you're going to hurt yourself. That's how anxious you are. And then the client looks back at me, right? You might be looking back at me and saying, oh, wait a minute. Okay, wait. Okay, so even though it feels like the most anxious I've ever been, which would have been a 5 for me, on the greater scale spectrum, right? Things of life, 5 is hospital and 1 is nothing at all. So maybe I'm more like a 3, like a 3.5, right? And now we've used the continuum and it's been super helpful because we've expanded even the idea of what was the most that something could be and what's really the least that something could be. So whichever way works for you, as this is the tool that you're practicing this upcoming week, really start noticing what is the most that something could be in that moment and make that the 5. What's the least it could be and make that the 1. You get to choose what the core of that continuum is. Is it a heat continuum? Is it a light continuum? Is it a happiness continuum, an anxiety continuum? Whatever it is, make it yours and use this framework to help support you so that your emotions don't hijack you. We're nearing the end of the episode, and I'm wondering, what's your takeaway? Yeah, I'm personally sitting with all the times when I feel this intense emotion well up in me and I want to scream or I want to shout. Sometimes I do. If I'm driving, that's a good one. And somebody is not going fast enough. Maybe they're not even going the speed limit, right? And I want to yell, go faster! What are you doing? The rest of us are driving. We have places to be, right? And then I think, ooh, okay, we're pretty angry right now. Not like a 5. If this were my 5, how could I bring myself down to a 4? Just take a breath. And then let it out. Okay, all right. Maybe now I'm closer to a 4. In other ways, I might find that it's the opposite and I need to give myself some perspective. And I'm not angry enough about something that's happened 10 or 20,000 times, it seems. And I let it slide. And instead I say, you know what? I'm pretty calm, cool, and collected right now. If this was the coolest I could be, how do I bump myself up? How do I become a little more assertive, say, if I'm being too acquiescent on this? How do I get myself up to a 2? So let me know what you're playing with. When you find yourself in that space where things feel so intense that you've been triggered, what is your real 1 to 5 continuum? What's really the most things could be? either for you or in the grand scheme of things. What's really the 5? Know what it is for you. And as for 1, that's the least that it could be. Know what your 1 is, whether it's a 1 for you or whether it's a 1 on the grand spectrum of things. Know where you are. And then figure out what's the 2, 3, 4 in between. So I'll ask you to ask yourself the next time you're triggered, where am I really?
It's me again, reminding you that this was a throwback episode. I hope that you were able to take something from it, even one little nugget of wisdom, and use that between this week and next week, right? The purpose of these episodes is to give you tools. It is up to you to decide whether you want to become skilled in them. You picking up what I'm putting down? So take a tool, take something, a perspective, a moment, something that works for you, and use it in your life to transform hard conversations into teachable moments. To transform the way that you play with scary moments, right? To transform your life, to help make you the most courageous, most healing-oriented, most belonging person, right? No matter where you go, that you belong to yourself everywhere you go, right? Courage, healing, belonging, whatever it is that you are taking from this episode, take it with you, so that you can get out there and live your most vibrant life, you beautiful human being. Okay? All right, I'm signing off for now, but I'm gonna see you soon, okay? I'm gonna see you real soon. Bye for now. Thank you so much for being willing to explore healing your humanity on Empowered Human. I hope you found at least one new way to transform your worldview from powered to empowered. If you took something from the show, please take a moment of your time and subscribe to Empowered Human. And if it really nourished you, leave us a review. Your feedback helps me understand what our community needs. Not to mention, it helps others discover the empowered human life. So keep this last bit in mind. All the visual goodies come with me on Instagram at Drama Therapist Nina. Stay up to date there on upcoming episodes, behind the scenes goodness, and reels dropping knowledge. Thank you again for being part of the empowered human community. Until next time, stay curious.